What's up YouTube, Roblox Prodigy here, bringing you the most definitive and accurate infinite tier list. So obviously this is my opinion, but I don't mind if you disagree. Just comment down below and let me what you think should be different. If you think any unit should be a higher tier, just say that and give your reasons why, and then obviously I'll try and reply to all the comments. But if you've played this game for a while and you've had some tries at getting really high waves, such as 58, 57, 59, if you're really lucky, then I'm sure you'll agree with me. Obviously I can't talk about every unit, but I'll try and run through all the new units and try to comment on some of the lower tier units that most of you might still be using. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. So obviously in the F tier you can see there's a bunch of units here. Most of these units are all pretty much just the same kind of unit. Obviously some will be hill units and others will be ground units, but most of them just have got too high of an SPA or too low of damage. And as such they're placed in the trash F tier. Okay, so for the E tier, we're going to go over some of the key characters here. So obviously you can see Yoshikage Kira at the top of E tier. So his ability is quite unique in that you can chain him and then press explode, but he still just doesn't do enough damage. Moving along, you can see some other units, Genos and King. They are both decent air units, both have decent SPA and decent damage, but just not enough to get you to really high waves. Okay, so moving on to D tier, you can see we have Margin Vegeta at the top. He's a decent unit with decent range and decent damage, but just not enough. Again, you can see some other units that most of you might be using, such as SSJ3 Goku. His SPA is just way too long and his damage is not high enough to get you to the high waves. The other units, such as Eren and the new Black Zetsu, these guys are decent units for the early starting waves, but past like wave 30 they're going to be doing absolutely nothing for you. Okay, moving on to C tier, you can see the new unit, Mob Psycho 100%. I think he's called Stampede in the game. This unit is okay. His range is only 21, which makes him kind of useless. Kind of just like a worse version of Akaza. He does a little bit less damage and yeah, he's just not that good. You can also see that at the top we have Grey. This unit's decent, he has a decent SPA and obviously his effect is very good, but if you're using this effect you can't actually use time stop, so that's why he's in C tier, not any higher. So moving on to B tier, I know a lot of you will have Sasuke 5-star. It was very popular, very easy to get by evolving two Sasuke 4-stars. He's a very good unit. Good enough to get you to wave 30, wave 40 type of range, but just not enough to push you over to like wave 50 plus. Next on that tier is also Obito. His SPA is kind of low, but he's got good damage and obviously his cone is really wide. Luffy's kind of in a similar boat, where his SPA is kind of low. He's got really good damage, really good range. Yeah, but yeah, the low SPA just doesn't do it. The new unit Blackbeard is also in this tier. He's kind of just like a shit version of Fujitora. Next is also Ace. I know a lot of people like using Ace. He's a very good unit, very good to start with. He can clear the early waves really easily. His burn damage is good, especially when you scale it with Erwin, but there's just better air units out there, especially since he doesn't do any AoE, he's just a single target. That's why Doflamingo is also in this tier list, where he's kind of in a similar boat. He's just got good, really good single target damage, but when you're dealing with really fast decelerates in the later waves, his damage is just not enough, and he doesn't do AoE, so it's kind of just a B tier unit. Two other units in this tier which are worth mentioning is gonna be Rengoku. Rengoku's obviously, everyone knows him to be a huge single target damage, huge single target burn, but I think Natsu just does what he does better and he does AoE, whereas Rengoku's just single target. and the DPS just isn't enough when you get to wave 55 and there's like cloners running around with 1 million HP. Just 1,500 damage just isn't gonna do anything anyways. Next on this list is Broly, and he's quite popular, quite easy to get as well. Obviously his SPA is 16, which just makes him just an average unit, but he's decent enough. Okay, moving on to A tier, you can see we have Fujitora and Sanami. They're both kind of similar in terms of damage. Obviously Fujitora's got meteors, which makes him slightly better. They're both very good units, but there are just better units, which means that they're only going to be in A tier. Next is also Kaido's also here. He's a very good unit. He can obviously attack both ground and air after the update, but his damage just isn't high enough. Natsu's also here. I think Natsu could potentially go a little bit higher in this tier, but he's just kind of similar in terms of damage to both Sanami and Fujitora. And last in the A tier is Maka, or Mina. She's a very good bleed unit, great alternative for Toga, but Toga's still the best bleed unit in the game. She just applies it more efficiently to all the units, whereas Maka is kind of just a little bit higher SPA, so therefore she can't really apply it as consistently. Next tier is the S tier. So this is a top tier units. These units can definitely get you to wave 55 plus if you're using them correctly. Obviously before Gojo came out, you can see in this tier we have Dio and Jotaro. They are obviously the only other replacement for Gojo, but they're just slightly worse, and therefore they're going to be an S tier. They're definitely good enough to get you to wave 58, as you can see from like Zero Pain, who've done it with these units. But they can't really get you to 59. So you can see the new Whitebeard is here as well. He's a great unit. He has quite crazy damage at level 80, 1400, but his SPA is slightly too high and his ability isn't that useful past a certain point. Golden Frieza is also here. He's kind of just like a worse version of another unit who's in the S plus tier. I'm sure most of you know already. But he's a good alternative. He does decently and he can actually, I think, get you to 59 or at least 58. Mihawk's also in this tier. Obviously some of you will be surprised to see he's not S+, but I think right now in this meta there is a better air unit, and that air unit can solo kill all the air units up to get you to wave 59 on his own. So that's why Mihawk's here, and he's quite expensive. Obviously Toga's here, she's the best bleed unit in the game, but as a standalone unit, she's just not that good. She needs Nezuko, or she's actually quite useless. So moving on to the last tier, that's the S plus tier, we have the top 3 in the first 3 positions. So that's going to be Bulma, Erwin, Light. These are absolutely necessary for any run up to any wave past wave 40 probably. Definitely the best 3 units in the game for infinite modes. And next in the order is Gojo. So obviously I put these units all in order of which one's best to worst in their own tiers as well. So you can see that the top 4, these are absolutely necessary to get to wave 59. There is no changing them for any other units. Like, you have to have these basically, and pretty much both players need them. So obviously if you're doing a duo strat for wave 59, one person will run Erwin, another person will run Gojo, but other than that both players need Bulmas and both players need like Yagami. So next in this tier is Gogeta. He is pretty much, I think most people will agree by this point, the best air unit in the game. Obviously his requirement is kind of sucky, but of course everyone knows how to get past that by just having another account and then making that account leave halfway through the game. But he can clear all the air units by himself to get you to wave 59, so there's no need to run Mihawk. You can swap Mihawk out for a different unit with more damage. So that's why we have Minato here next, who is probably the best 6-star. Some people might argue that Nagato, the new unit, is better because he can attack air as well, but Minato just has the highest DPS. So Minato is obviously attacking every 3 seconds and doing about 1600-1700 damage. Most people are using him in any Wave 59 run these days, or at least having 8 of them. If you want to run Nezuko, you can have 8 Minatos, but if you're not running Nezuko, you'll have 16 Minatos. And he's just the best consistent damage. He has a slightly small cone for his AoE, but his range makes up for that for sure. And next on this list, we have the new 5-star Gen, or Gon in the anime, obviously. He is definitely the highest DPS unit in the game right now. Attacks every 6 seconds and does like 5,500 damage without airman buff. So that makes him extremely useful for clearing, for example, Wave 51, which is really hard to do if you're trying to get to Wave 59. So I think the new strat would be to at least have someone run Gon in order to clear those high waves for you, and that will definitely help you to get Wave 59 much easier than before. But still, his range is a little bit lower than Minato, so I still think Minato might be a little bit better. But just depends on what strats you're going to be using to get to Wave 59. Next on the list is Nagato, the new Pain 6-star. He's a very good unit. He does a lot of damage, 1900, attacking about every 5 seconds, attacking both air and ground. But his range is only 35, so that's why I still think Gogeta is going to be more useful. And Gogeta's wide cone, especially on a snow map, is just unmatched by any other unit, other than maybe Nezuko. And that's why Nezuko is going to top off the S+ tier. She is probably one of the best DPS ground units in the game, but obviously the requirement to run a bleed unit like Toga or Maka is just making her not that good as before, but you could definitely use her still to get to Wave 59. Okay, so that's it. That wraps up my tier list. Let me know what you think. Comment down below if you think anyone should be higher or lower. And yeah, just let me know what sort of videos you want to see in the future. Peace.